Hello everyone, in today's session we are going to discuss reading comprehension. This is exercise passage 6. Let's begin. The index. Exercise questions based on passage 6 along with answers and explanations and summary as well. The disclaimer is the images used in our slide deck are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and the owners of these images. If you are the owner of any of the images used in this deck and have any concerns or issues, please contact us as sathee@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the images. Let's see the directions. Read the following passages carefully and answer the given questions. Certain words phrases are given in bold in the passages to help you locate them while answering some of the questions. Questions are to be answered on the basis of the information provided in the passage, and you are not expected to rely on outside knowledge of a particular topic. Your own views or opinions may sometimes conflict with the views expressed for the information provided in the passage. Be sure that you work within the context of the passage. You should not expect to agree with everything you encounter in reading passages. You should analyze the passage carefully before answering the accompanying questions. Look for clues that will help you understand less explicit aspects of the passage. Try to separate main ideas from supporting ideas or evidence. Not transition from one idea to the next, and examine to the relationships among the different ideas or parts of the passage. For example, are they contrasting? Are they complementary? Consider the points that the author made, the conclusion drawn, and how and why those points are made or conclusion are drawn. Read each question carefully and be certain that you understand exactly what is being asked. Always read all the answer choices before selecting the best answer. The best answer is the one that accurately completely answers the questions being posed. Be careful not to pick an answer choice simply because it is a true statement. Be careful also not to be misled by answer choices that are only partially true or only partially satisfy the problem posed in the question. The methodology of eliminating wrong answers also work here. It simply means that if you are unable to judge the right choice or right answer, cross the answers that are incorrect. In this way, if there remains one answer to be crossed, that will be the correct answer. I hope you have understood the directions. Let's begin with questions. Question 1. And the passage is, the income disparity in the new India is massive. 36 billionaires in India and 800 million people living on less than $2 a day. The challenge for achieving inclusive growth relates to the revival of agriculture. Farming is becoming a non-viable activity. A confluence of factors from poor rainfall to the new availability of consumer goods which consume much of Indian families' incomes has driven many farmers into crushing debt. The agriculture sector has many problems with a growth rate of less than 2% in the last decade. Further scope for increase in net sown area is limited. Disparity in productivity across regions and crops has persisted. Far from benefiting from the economic boom, many complain that banks don't offer the rural poor credit, forcing them to turn to greedy money lenders, who typically charge up to 20% interest on a fourth month loan. Healthcare and education costs have risen dramatically, while the global price of cotton has become depressed, largely due to the billions of dollars in subsidies Washington hands out to US farmers. The approach to the revival of Indian agriculture seems to be incremental rather than a holistic strategy. It's important to stress that the growth and equity should be pursued simultaneously rather than following growth first and equity next approach. What are the challenges for achieving 4% growth and equity in agriculture? Policymakers like the National Commission on Farmers mention cost reduction in agriculture as important to compete in a globalized world. The most important problem for the farmers is output price fluctuations. There is a big gap between producer prices and consumer prices. In order to protect farmers from national and international price volatility, a price stabilization fund is needed. The supply and demand side constraints have to be removed to raise growth. The support system have to be tuned to improve productivity and incomes of farmers, with emphasis on small and marginal farmers and dry land areas. One of the differences between the Green Revolution in the 1960s and 70s and the present second Green Revolution is that risk is higher in the later approach, as it has to concentrate more on dry land areas. Trade liberalization has also raised the risk and uncertainty. Thus, policies have to keep in mind the increasing risk in agriculture. Agriculture policies have to be gender sensitive to since the share of women is increasing. The government is aware that the crop sector may not be able to grow at 4% per annum, but horticulture and allied activities like dairying, poultry, and fishers have to grow at the rate 6 to 7% to achieve 4% growth in agriculture. Investment in irrigation and rural infrastructure is important for agriculture growth. It is known that public investment in agriculture is lower than the requirements needed for achieving 4% growth. Bharat Nirman program is in the right direction, but the progress has to be much faster. I hope you've understood the passage. Let's begin with questions. What does the author view as a challenge for achieving inclusive growth? Options are doubling agriculture growth using an incremental approach, regulating the availability of consumer goods, achieving growth and equity in agriculture, reducing cost of healthcare and education for the poor through privatization, maintaining as steady growth rate of 2% during the next decade. I hope you've understood the options and you have 10 seconds to answer. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 3, achieving growth and equity in agriculture. And the explanation is the author identifies the main challenge for inclusive growth in India as the need to revive agriculture, particularly by addressing the simultaneous pursuit of both growth and equity. The passage argues that growth and equity should be pursued together, rather than the growth first, equity next approach to ensure that the benefits of agriculture growth are shared by all, especially small and marginal farmers. The problems of low agriculture growth, price fluctuations, limited access to credit, and increasing risk in agriculture are highlighted as obstacles to achieving both growth and equity in the sector. Therefore, the focus is on ensuring both productivity and fairness in the agriculture sector, which aligns with option 3. I hope you understood. The next question is which of the following factors should the government take into consideration while farming agriculture policies? Allied farm activities like horticulture should receive less attention. Increased participation of women in agriculture sector. Reduce risk in agriculture owing to globalization. Options are only A, only B, A and B, all A, B, C, and none of these. You have 10 seconds to choose one of these. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 2, only B. And the explanation is according to the passage, the government should take into consideration increased participation of women in the agriculture sector. While farming agriculture policies, this is emphasized as a necessary aspect of policy making because the share of women in agriculture is increasing. The passage does not suggest that allied farm activities like horticulture should receive less attention. Option A, or that the risk in agriculture have been reduced due to globalization. Option C. In fact, the passage mentioned the globalization has increased the risk in agriculture, and the government needs to account for these heightened risks while making policies. Thus, only option B, increased participation of women, is correct. I hope you understood. The next question is why is farming not considered as a feasible occupation? Options are insufficient land suitable for cultivation, price stabilization fund introduced by the government, superior Western farming practices, rapid spread of road network has restored agricultural land, and none of the above. You have 10 seconds to choose one of these. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 1, insufficient land suitable for cultivation. And the explanation is the passage mentioned that farming is becoming a non-viable activity due to various factors, one of which is limited scope for increasing the net sown area. This refers to the fact that there is insufficient land suitable for cultivation, which limits the potential for agriculture expansion. The passage does not mention anything about a price stabilization fund, Western farming practices, or the spread of road networks destroying agricultural land as a reason of farming becoming unfeasible. Therefore, insufficient and land suitable for cultivation, option 1 is the correct explanation. The next question is what has prevented the rural poor from benefiting from economic growth? The first one is high rate of interest on bank credit. The B is exploitation by money lenders. Subsidies provided by the government to the farmers are insufficient. Options are only C, A and B, only B, B and C, and none of these. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 4 B and C. And the explanation is according to the passage, rural poor have been prevented from benefiting from economic growth due to B. Exploitation by moneylenders. The passage mentioned that many rural poor are unable to get credit from banks, so they have to turn to greedy moneylenders who charge higher interest rates up to 20% on a fourth month loan, which exploit them. C. Subsidies provided by the government to farmers are insufficient. The passage also highlights that subsidies given to farmers are insufficient, and the global price of cotton has been depressed due to subsidies in other countries, example the US. This reduces the benefits that rural farmers could otherwise gain. Thus, the correct answer is B and C, because both factors, exploitation by moneylenders and insufficient government subsidies, are mentioned in the passage as reasons preventing the rural poor from benefiting from economic growth. I hope you've understood. The next question is, why is public investment in agriculture negligible? Options are: government procedures for investing in agriculture are too tedious. Present government programs are ensuring rapid progress. Cost of living has gone up. There are no tax concessions for investment in agriculture. None of the above. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 1. Government procedures for investment in agriculture are too tedious. And the explanation is the passage mentioned that public investment in agriculture is lower than required for achieving 4% growth. While it doesn't explicitly state why the investment is low, it suggests that bureaucratic hurdles and tedious procedures could be a reason for the insufficient investment. The focus of the passage is on the challenges in the agriculture sector, including the need for faster progress in government programs like Bharat Inman, but the passage does not mention tax concessions or other direct causes. Therefore, option 1 is the most likely answer based on the passage. The next question is, which of the following is not true in the context of the passage? Options are: trade liberalization has reduced uncertainty in agriculture. Currently, 4% growth in crop sector is not feasible. Indian families are spending more than what they can afford on luxury items. Agriculture growth rate has remained stagnant during the last 10 years. Fluctuations in prices pose a problem to the farmers. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 1. Trade liberalization has reduced the uncertainty in agriculture. According to the passage, trade liberalization has actually increased the risk and uncertainties in agriculture, not reduced them. The passage mentioned that trade liberalization has also raised risk and uncertainty for farmers, especially in the context of the second green revolution, which focuses more on dry land areas and faces higher risk due to globalization. Therefore, option 1 is not true in the context of the passage. I hope you've understood. The next question is, how does the government plan to ensure a 4% growth rate in agriculture? Options are: providing licenses to unlicensed money lenders, should focus from developing agriculture infrastructure to pricing of agriculture products, providing subsidies equivalent to those given in the US, maintaining a 6% growth rate, allied agriculture activities, and none of the above. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you have chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 4. Maintaining a 6% growth rate in allied agriculture activities. And the explanation is the passage mentioned that the crop sector may not be able to grow at 4% per annum, but for the overall agriculture growth to reach 4%, horticulture and allied activities like dairying, poultry, and fishes need to grow at a rate of 6% and 7%. These activities are seen as key components in achieving the overall growth target in agriculture. Therefore, option 4 is the correct answer. The next question is, why are farmers facing crippling debt? A. Increased expenditure on luxury items. B. Subsidies are not provided by the Indian government. C. Prices of crops like cotton have risen dramatically. Options are all A, B, C, only A, only B, A and B, and none of these. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 3, only B. And the explanation is according to the passage, farmers are facing crippling debt due to several factors, and one key point is the lack of adequate credit support from banks, forcing farmers to turn to money lenders who charge high interest rates. The passage also mentioned that subsidies from the Indian government are insufficient, particularly in comparison to the subsidies provided by the US government to its farmers, which has depressed global cotton prices. Option B is the correct choice because the passage specifically states the bank don't offer credit to the rural people, poor, leading them to borrow from money lenders, contributing to their debt. Thus, the only correct answer based on the passage is option B. I hope you understood. What do policymakers feel is essential for India's agriculture sector to be competitive internationally? Options are exactly replicating the green revolution of the 1960s, reduce government intervention in the agriculture sector to speed up progress, removal of price stabilization fund, emphasizing more on economic growth rather than on inclusiveness, and none of the above. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 5, none of the above. And the explanation is the passage talks about reduction of cost in agriculture as a way for India's agriculture sector to be competitive internationally, as can be inferred from the sentence. Policymakers like the National Commission on Farmers mention cost reduction in agriculture as important to compete in globalized world. The next question is whether the following is not a means to achieve 4% agriculture growth rate. Options are stricter regulations governing demand and supply, focus on increasing the income of small farmers, attention to development of dry land, concentration on fishers, poultry and other allied activities, increasing public investment in agriculture. I hope you have understood the options and you have 10 seconds to answer. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 1. Stricter regulations governing demand and supply. The passage highlights that achieving a 4% agriculture growth rate requires addressing issues like improving productivity, increasing incomes for small and marginal farmers, investing in rural infrastructure, focusing on dry land areas, and promoting allied activities like fishers and poultry. There is no mention of stricter regulations governing demand and supply as a specific means to achieve this growth. Instead, the passage emphasizes removing constraints such as addressing price volatility and enhancing support systems for farmers, rather than imposing stricter regulations. Thus, option 1 does not align with the passage's discussion on strategies for achieving the desired agriculture growth rate, making it the correct answer. I hope you've understood. The next question is choose the word which is the most nearly the same in meaning as the word printed in bold as used in the passage. Compete. Options are fight, struggle, defeat, participate, and pursue. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is one fight. And the explanation is in the passage, the word compete is used in the context of cost reduction in agriculture as important to compete in a globalized world. Here, compete refers to the ability of Indian farmers to contest or fight against global agriculture producers, implying a struggle for survival in a competitive global market. The meaning of fight aligns with this idea of trying to gain an advantage to or maintain viability in a competitive environment, especially when there are challenges such as price fluctuations, international subsidies, and other global factors. Thus, the word fight, option 1, is the closest in meaning to compete as used in the passage. I hope you understood. Choose the word which is most nearly the same in meaning as the word printed in bold as used in the passage. Persisted. Options are fixed, insisted, applied, determined, and continued. The correct answer is 5, continued. And the explanation is in the passage, the word persisted is used in the sentence, disparity in productivity across regions and crops has persisted. Here, persisted means that the disparity in productivity has continued over time without being resolved and reduced. The word continued fits perfectly in this context, meaning that the disparity has remained or lasted over time, which is exactly the intended meaning. Thus, continued is the most appropriate synonym for persisted in this context. I hope you understood. The next question is choose the word which is the most nearly the same in meaning as the word printed in bold as used in the passage stress. Options are strain, anxiety, emphasis, burden, suffer, adversely. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 3 emphasis. And the explanation is in the passage, the word stress is used in the sentence. It is important to stress that growth and equity should be pursued simultaneously. Here, stress means to emphasize or highlight the importance of something. The word emphasis perfectly captures its meaning as it refers to giving special importance or attention to a particular point, which is exactly what is being done when passage emphasizes the need to pursue both growth and equity together. Thus, emphasis is the correct synonym for stress in this context. The next question is choose the word which is most opposite in meaning of the printed in bold as used in the passage disparity. The first one is advocacy. The second one is comparison, contrast, balance, or dissimilar. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. Let's move to the correct answer. The correct answer is 4 balance. And the explanation is in this passage, the word disparity refers to a significant difference or inequality, specifically in the context of disparity in productivity across regions and crops. This implies an uneven or unequal distribution, especially regarding agricultural productivity. The opposite of disparity would be something that implies equality or sameness. Among the options, balance option 4 is the most appropriate opposite because it refers to a state of equality or even distribution, which contrasts directly with the concept of disparity, which suggests imbalance or inequality. Therefore, balance is the correct antonym for disparity, as it represents equality or equilibrium, opposite to the idea of significant difference or inequality. The next question is choose the word which is most opposite in meaning of the word printed in bold as used in the passage simultaneously. The word is independently, the second one is partially, the third one is freely, the fourth one is jointly, and the fifth one is adversely. You have 10 seconds to choose accordingly. I hope you've chosen the right one. The correct answer is 1 independently. And the explanation is in the passage, the word simultaneously is used in the context. It is important to stress that growth and equity should be pursued simultaneously. Here, simultaneously means that both growth and equity should be pursued at the same time, implying a coordinated or joint effort. The opposite of simultaneously would be something that suggests actions are not happening at the same time. Among the given options, independently option 1 fits the opposite meaning because it suggests that growth and equity should be pursued separately or without coordination, rather than together at the same time. Thus, independently is the correct antonym, meaning not at the same time or separately, which contrasts with the idea of simultaneity. I hope you've understood. So, this is all about this session. Thank you.